my heart with this last verse about not just seek him while he's close at hand, while you're able to find him. You know, I know it talks about the end times, but especially what we do in this country, what we're doing right here, am I safe to say that in more than half the world this is illegal? What we're doing right now? More than half the world, what we're doing right now, just getting together and singing about Jesus. You know, we're not plotting nothing, we're not, hurting anybody, but it's considered illegal, and people are put in jail and killed all over the world by doing what we're doing. And, sometimes, we don't, that's happening way over there. We don't see that happening here a lot of times. But one thing that I want to encourage you is you have an opportunity in this country to find God that most people don't, to have a relationship with him that other people fight for. And so I want to encourage you today, find him, seek him. Remember, he's the worst person to play hide and go seek with. You find him, you look for him, you're going to find him, I guarantee it. But you know what? When you don't use your rights, when you don't use your rights, you lose them. And you know what? And be honest, especially in this country too, if you don't use your rights, you lose them. We have freedom of speech here, and we have freedom of religion. But if we're not careful to use that, we could easily lose it here, like most people have it around the world. I know that I don't know if you've read up or stuff like like that healthcare bill that's kind of come out now. Trying to help everybody out and provide medical assistance for even the poor people. Sounds great. But part of that, they're having to try to. I don't know if you've seen the news. They try to regulate certain things. Maybe they're thinking about get rid of the unhealthy stuff, so that way we live healthier lives, and they're trying to, manipulate certain choices. But you know what? If they can do that with little things, for example, I don't know if you heard about this. I think really recently in Texas. I think it was in Texas. It was on the news. A little girl got 1 week detention for bringing a Jolly Rancher to school. Did anybody hear that before? I think it was Texas. You're from Texas, aren't you, Travis? Yeah, Texas. A Jolly Rancher, because it's, they're trying to regulate certain unhealthy things and unhealthy options. But for one Jolly Rancher, she was a little girl. She'd never been in trouble before in her life, and she got 1 week detention for bringing a Jolly Rancher because it was a government regulation and trying to control certain unhealthy choices. But that's just a Jolly Rancher, Hey, is the Jolly Rancher going to fulfill all my vitamin C for that day? Probably not, right? But if they can do that with a Jolly Rancher, could they do that with anything else? Could they do it with something more important, like regulating, let's say, our worship? Some people probably think like, well, maybe not, but I just want to play you a quick video.
Here's the church.
Here's the steeple.
Open the doors.
Open the doors.
Open the doors.
The doors of the church are being bound. The church's God-given and First Amendment right to freely share biblical truth is under growing attack. Urged on by anti-Christian groups, government regulations increasingly seek to muzzle people of faith, and in particular, pastors.
Church bishops are thought of as men of peace, but tonight we have a story of one bishop who stands convicted of disturbing the peace.
I was convicted of 2 criminal misdemeanors for ringing the bells of the church.
In Montana, a church was forced to engage in a federal lawsuit because they made petitions available supporting an amendment affirming marriage as between one man and one woman. A church in the Bronx has faced a 16-year legal battle with the New York City Board of Education over the rental of a public school building for Sunday worship services. Authorities see it as a violation of the so-called separation of church and state. An Oregon church was dragged through an IRS audit and their nonprofit status challenged because the pastor commented on an upcoming election issue in light of biblical teachings.
San Diego County is demanding a local pastor fork up thousands of dollars to host Bible study at his own home.
So the County of San Diego slaps Pastor David Jones of South Bay Community Church with a citation for praying at his house every Tuesday.
In Michigan, activists disrupted a Sunday morning service protesting the church's biblical views on morality and homosexual behavior. A so-called civil rights investigation was launched against a Methodist association in New Jersey for refusing to use their worship pavilion for a same-sex civil union ceremony. In California, pastors and church members were threatened with violence and loss of employment for supporting a state amendment restoring marriage as the union of one man and one woman.
And we don't ever want them coming back, ever. Do you understand the other Christians? Do you understand that other Mormons? I'm talking to you people. Yeah, you.
As a whole is under attack.
Just maintain peace and safety for ourselves. What kind of message are we giving to the next generation who are watching us? And how are we displaying the glory of God if we have to cower in the face of opposition from governmental officials? We will never be able to stand if that is our attitude.
If we don't speak up, nobody's going to speak up.
Every Great Awakening had two aspects of it, and that was evangelism, and then they spoke out prophetically to the culture. If we do not speak up at this time, I believe we're at a nadir in our culture. It'll just continue in free fall. We'll lose people, we'll lose the opportunity for the church to come alive. But if we turn it around and step up, I think we'll be involved in making sure that another Great Awakening actually transpires.
A great deal of freedom to speak the truth today. We just have to have the courage to do it.
Open the doors.
Open the doors.
Open the doors.
Open the doors.
This last week in New Mexico, the 3 students passed out a bunch of, they were trying to be nice, and the youth group that's a part of this community there, they're really active in the community, especially in the school. A lot of the students, they're always passing out free things and trying to really help out and do things for teachers and do things for other students and, you know, trying to really make a difference. This last week, they left a bunch of donuts in the teacher's lounge. Just because, they just wanted to be nice, and they've bought the teachers' lunches before, but now they left a bunch of Krispy Kreme donuts out there with a bunch of Bible verses around the donuts and on the box and stuff like that, and they got suspended, I think, for three days, just for doing that, just because it was Bible verses attached to a free donut. You know what? And kind of like what I said before, if you're not aware and if you don't use your rights, you could easily lose them here than anywhere else. And me as a pastor, you know what? I'm never going to tell you what to do. I'm never going to tell you, who to vote for. I'm never going to tell you what party is better than the other, because honestly, they're both really annoying. I'm not going to tell you any of that, all right? What I'm going to do, with my responsibility before God, is to show you His truth, to show you God's way, to show you values and principles that He's set up and that He desires us to live by. And then in this case, obviously with school board and officials and people that we elect, especially with an election coming up soon, it's up to us to elect people that agree and find on principles, on basic principles, godly principles that this nation was built on. So again, I will never tell you what to do. That's your choice to make. I'm going to show you, I'm going to compare you to God, and then you make all your comparisons, whether you're friends, whether people, people at work or government officials, you compare it to them. You compare them to God, and then you make your choice. Again, my responsibility is to show you God's way.